Hey family, you're tuning in to the Jimmy Bonds podcast on Illadelphia Radio. Pardon any technical difficulties as we're recording live on the Zoom platform. Sit back, relax, and enjoy the show.
Yeah. Jimmy. Lights, camera, action. Some people thought I quit and I ain't giving satisfaction. From a different era, writing rhymes up on napkins. What you had to say was more important, man, than trapping. Yeah, I'm talking back and speaking of contemporary.
What's good, family? And welcome to another episode of Jimmy Bonds Podcast on Illadelphia Radio. This episode is sponsored by Major Flavor Productions, LLC. I'm your host, Jimmy Bonds, along with my co-host, Ty. T.Y., what's good, Ty? How you feeling?
All good in the neighborhood, JB.
All good in the neighborhood. And you know I can't forget my other co-host, Love Miss T with the T. What's up, T? How you feeling?
I'm feeling good, Jimmy. How about you?
I'm doing good, Mom. I'm doing good. Remember, family, you can call us with your comments or questions at 844-844-1244. Again, that's 844-844-1244. You can also email us at jimmybondspodcast@gmail.com. Again, it's jimmybondspodcast@gmail.com. It's JIMMYBONDS podcast@gmail.com. Also, family, remember to follow us on Instagram at Jimmy Bonds Podcast, on Twitter at Podcast Bonds. Make sure you also join our Facebook group, that's Jimmy Bond Podcast Facebook group, so we can continue to open a dialogue. Moving right along, family. Tonight, we are covering a topic that I always feel is important because it affects everybody in some way or fashion. But tonight, I wanted to talk about the topic of first generation. Now, we're trying to figure out what is first generation. What does that mean? Well, more directly, we're talking about people who have either their parents have immigrated to the U.S. and they're the first generation to either be naturalized or be a citizen. They were born in this country, maybe. And we wanted to really talk about some of their experiences, what they have experienced, their struggles, what they overcome, that kind of thing. And tonight, we are lucky, rather, to have my friend, my colleague, my old colleague, my girl Lucy. How you doing, Lucy? How you feeling?
I'm good. Hi, everybody. I'm feeling good tonight.
Definitely. It's good to have you on. And you know, I have my other guest, Miss Samaya. How you feeling, Samaya?
I'm good.
Definitely. Well, look, they're gonna be semi co-hosts with us as well because they're gonna walk us through this journey. But family, I wanted to cover this topic because first generation is something I think people often, we don't think about it. We're all immigrants in some kind of way, shape, or fashion. We're all third, fifth generation of something. So we're going to be covering this topic of first generation because not only is it important, but we're all generation of something. I'm probably fifth generation West African, maybe. I mean, I'm not sure. Ty would probably tell me, no, you're not, Jimmy, but we all come from somewhere. We're all immigrants in some kind of way. There are some of us who are in this country that are first generation immigrants who have had definitely different experiences than other people. And I feel like it's important to make sure that we cover this topic because people, we don't know what they go through. We don't understand their experiences. We don't understand their having to adapt. We don't understand exactly. We don't know sometimes what they feel as people coming into this country and not knowing exactly what they have to, go through, what it is they experience. So what I wanted to do first was, talk to Lucy a little bit about what they, what some of their struggles were, what some of the misconceptions are. So, Lucy, let's go ahead and kick it off. Tell us a little bit about what it was like growing up as a first generation in this country.
Okay, so a little bit real quick of background. I would say my parents came from West Africa, Sierra Leone, about 41 years ago. So growing up African, let's just say, it was hard because it's like I didn't fit in my own culture with my African people, and growing up in America, I didn't fit in either. So it's just that complex of like, where do you belong? Because I don't speak my native tongue. I speak English. So it made it hard for my dialect with my family to understand me. And then when I go to school, I don't look like my peers. And they be like, oh, you African? And it was like some type of an embarrassment, especially when I was growing up. So it was like the era of the African booty scratchers. It was an interesting time. Let me just say that. But it was just like my biggest hurdle was like not finding a place or trying to fit in when I didn't fit in either my American side or African. So that was the biggest thing for me.
Did you feel like you could never adapt or you can never be, on one side or the other?
If I'm being honest, I was like, no. If I'm being completely honest, of course, I relate more to my African side because I look like them, but it's just a speaking portion of it. But I felt like I was so like, now looking back at my younger self, I felt like I was ashamed of being African when I was trying to fit into be American, because it's like, no, I'm not African. My parents are. And it was just that, like, not knowing who I was, because it was, people made me feel different. So it's like trying to understand, especially when you're a kid, you don't know nothing about yourself. Ask me Lucy today. Of course, I know the difference between the two, but Lucy back then was just like, I was ashamed to be African because I felt out of place with both sides.
Yes. Do you feel as though it was like an identity crisis for you, not being able to communicate with the American side and the African side?
In some ways, yes, because it's like I said, it was just like those who were like, I grew up with what asked me, like I said, I was ashamed of it. Those who would ask me questions about it, I always try to hide away, like, of embracing my African side. Because, well, to answer your question, yes, I do feel like those identity crises. But when you're a kid, you don't know nothing. Like, so it's like, right. You're still trying to figure out yourself as a person. Forget the African, African American side. You just really just trying to figure out yourself as an individual. So adding that I was from, like, my parents was from a different country, that I was African, it just made it a little bit more harder for me.
Was it a challenge? Well, from a family standpoint, was there anyone you can turn to for help as far as helping you out with this?
Honestly, no, because if I look to my parents, I mean, at that time, like, when I could understand, like, yeah, I'm African, like, probably like around, I want to say 7, 8, like, that I can really just remember. I can't turn to my parents because my parents, they couldn't help me with that situation because they didn't know. So it's like, you don't turn to anybody but your cousins. Like, my cousins were like the people that I ran to because we all faced the same issue.
Yeah.
Got you. Okay. Does your parents speak English?
Yes.
Okay.
Like, my parents, when my dad came to America for school. So the only way, like, he could be in the States was for school. And then my mom, same way, but then she lost her visa at the time. And so she was undocumented for like a couple of years. So it was kind of like, when she tells me the story now about it, it's like, damn, like, my parents came over to America for better opportunity. And it's like learning English, like, I didn't even realize how, difficult that was. But
yeah, English is difficult. Jimmy, does this go under the previous podcast as like a stereotype, when they stereotype people like this?
I wouldn't think so. It would, but I'm not. I can't say yes for sure. I think it goes under the
other podcast we did on First Generation. This will go under.
Okay, I got you.
With Akuna, because remember, she's African also.
Right, got you.
The one where we did the Black American and African American divide. Like, yeah, that could go under the same pretext, but it's more about, like, if you think about how we operate as a society, a lot of times we try to keep everything exclusive, where, instead of inclusive. So we don't really include, quote unquote, people who are not born here in a lot of things that we do. So I thought this topic is more about like what are their experiences, because being a first generation, I mean, the burden of it is so much, it's heavy. It's different than what our burden would be. You know what I mean? It's like I'm sure Lucy had to, carry the burden of what her parents came here for, to the fact that she, go to school or be successful, because they made the trek from home to a foreign country, in a sense. So, it was important for them to, I guess Lucy, you can answer that yourself. Like, did you feel like you had a burden with your parents, that you had to be successful?
Beyond, the way my friends grew up, especially with school and education, like, it was no option. Like, you ask any African, you growing up to be a nurse, a doctor, some type of, health field. And that's what I always thought I had to do. Even when I went to college, I was like a nurse major, just because my whole background is all, like, my dad's a doctor, my mom's a nurse. Like, that's just my family's, like, profession. So for me, it was just like, it was no question. Like, you have to read your book. I couldn't go outside like my friends could. I had to study. So the pressures is like, I made the sacrifice to come here for my education, to have a better life for you. So now you have to kind of pay that back in return.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's
sound like you from West Philly.
You sound like you from West Philly.
Like, like you from right down the street from me.
Well, I am in Southwest. There's a lot of Africans in Southwest. That's for sure.
That's the city, Woodland Avenue. That's like African Mecca.
Yeah,
Yeah, that is.
you know it. You know it. You know it. T, did you
Get
have a
me a
question?
DB platter tomorrow.
You said what, Ty?
Well, get me a DB platter tomorrow.
Yeah, there you go. See? There you go. T, did you have a question?
Well, you were talking about your obstacles and things like that with being first generation. Now, when did you, how can I word this? When did you feel a little bit more comfortable? I should say, like when you were saying your school stories and things like that, not necessarily comfortable, but okay.
Oh, I would say honestly, college. Like,
okay.
I would, because I feel like with college, you know how we go to college, we find ourselves as like you're the person that you kind of always wanted to be. So for me, like the embarrassment of it was not there anymore. Like after high school was over, I literally embraced like who I was, because it's like I don't have nothing to be ashamed of. I just misunderstood a lot of things that I now look back on and it's like ashamed of it now. Like, damn, I wish I would have, embraced my culture, because my culture is beautiful. But college was when I really woke up, I would say.
Okay. I feel like a lot of people, first generation or not, college is like when you said, you find yourself.
Yeah.
You find yourself. That's deep. I like that.
Yeah. I mean, shoot. I mean, a lot of people find themselves in college. That's for sure.
Yeah.
That's for sure. Let me ask you this, Lucy. What are some of the misconceptions that people have about first generation children?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, the biggest misconception I would say, like, that we know how, like, for me, like the biggest misconception is like we know how to speak. Like I said, I don't speak my native tongue. A lot of my friends be like, well, how do you say X, Y, and Z in Africa? Like my parents, they speak English to me. They can speak the native tongue to me, but I can't speak it back. So a lot of the time they think you can actually speak your language. Nah, for me, I can't. I can understand it fluently, but when I speak it back, it's just bad. So that would be the biggest misconception that I can think of, like off the bat. Just basically when people just ask me, like, how do you say X, Y, and Z, or what does that mean? Or you know what? I take that. I'm thinking of something now. Or like the biggest misconception, especially being Africa being a big, continent, like other people will be like, it'll be somebody who's like Nigerian. They'll be like, what that mean? And it's like, I don't know. Like Africa is a continent. It's not one big country. So I feel as though that's what I got a lot. So that's the biggest misconception, that all Africans is the same type of African. And it's different types of Africans. Like even in my Sierra Leone, we have different tribes. So that would be the biggest misconception. So I take that one.
So to educate our audience a little bit, what is the native tongue of Sierra Leone?
We have Fula. I would say majority is Creole, because it doesn't matter what tribe you're from, you understand Creole. And when I mean Creole, not like the broken French, like Creole is it's basically English with a twang, and it has like certain words, but I would say Creole is what everyone can understand. But I would say Creole, Mende, and then Fula, and then Simni.
I didn't know that. I was thinking that it was another language that everyone taught. That's what's up. That's dope. Ty, you got some more questions?
In college, did you come across different ethnic backgrounds that made it easier for you to adjust and adapt?
Honestly, no. I went to the University of Pittsburgh, so it was not even many of me. It's just in general. So to find like other Africans like me, no. I would say I found an African or two. So I'm just being completely honest, but no.
Did you find when you went to college that would you want to try to, I guess, hang out with other Africans, or were you more geared towards like, I just want to, I'm just going to learn how to navigate this myself?
Well, honestly, Jay, with college, you know how it goes. Like I just wanted to be with everybody. It didn't even matter. Like I didn't even think about it that way. Like when I say I embraced myself in college, meaning like I was confident in what my background was. But when I got to college, I wanted to mingle with everybody. I don't care if he was black, white, Hispanic, Timmy, whoever, wherever you from, I was okay with it.
I can dig that.
I agree with that. Yeah.
I mean, I guess I feel like we take it. I mean, people that are born here, and I mean, Lucy, I know you're born here, but people who have generations of people of ancestors here, I think sometimes we take it for granted being born American in a sense. You know what I mean? I mean, not that Lucy's not American, but more in the sense of like just having African American or black traditions, quote unquote. Black American traditions. I think sometimes we take it for granted that first generations have to really make a way for themselves in a way, and a lot of times it's not just economical, it's also within society It's within accepting groups. You know, it's within so many like different ranges of things that they have to adapt to. And you know, Lucy's story definitely is one of them that is ideal. Understanding that, yo, man, it ain't easy. You know, it's not always easy. Sometimes you get your culture shunned. Sometimes you have to adapting. You got to get rid of some things sometimes, and it's not easy all the time. You know, I mean, I just find it to be something I think we take for granted. You know, I mean, we have to adapt as well, but I think we take it for granted because we're just used to, you know, but that's what we do as Black people, the kind of thing. You know, we all speak English, or you know, even if it's a different twang from a different part of the country, it's still English. And you know, I think sometimes we just take it for granted. So, you know, what do you think, Ty? You think we do?
I think we go through the same thing over here with the different cultures of Black people, with the different, you know, territories and everything, and even like the slang. You just said the slang. Like down south, they got a certain slang that they speak. Yeah. Over the West Coast, they have a certain slang that they speak. And you know, here in the East Coast, is that hard slang, you know. So yeah, I mean, I can relate to what she's saying on some of this because we go through it here, but we haven't left this country to go somewhere else to experience what she's actually experienced.
Right. Who were you gonna say, T?
No, I'm agreeing with Ty. We cannot say, oh, we know how that feels. We can't say, oh, but we can't say anything because we don't know. All we can really do is just imagine. Yeah. But we can't go through what she went through. Nah. What any first generation goes through. Nah. I mean, I have a friend. She's first generation Nigerian in this country. Her and her brothers and her sister. But I still can't go through. I can't imagine that. Nah, even though we grew up in the same neighborhood, I still can't imagine because she has so much more expectation. Like, not saying that my parents didn't have expectation for me, but I saw like the difference kind of a little bit.
I mean, that makes sense. No, it makes a lot of sense because not that we don't have, like you said, our parents don't have expectations of us, but more along the lines of like, yeah, man, like it's twice as hard for us sometimes, like to, you know, to think about it. But then, you know, like their expectations is even harder because their parents are like, hey, I came to this country for you to have a better life. And you effing it up. Don't F this opportunity up. You know what I mean? And I mean, Lucy, is am I right? You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's really no hall passes. That's what I was saying. Like when if I couldn't do basic things that you would think that's regular. So it's like, oh, I want to go to my friend's house and sleep over. Like my parents and I don't want to come over disrespectful in any way, but my parents didn't let me do sleepovers at American kids' houses. Yeah. Like if I wanted to do sleepovers, I had to do sleepovers at my cousin's house.
And that's the only place you could go, right?
Yeah, that they felt safe and comfortable because
I have a grandfather. It's technically American now, but back when he came over, it was he's from an island. It was ruled by the British. So like my dad was raised how he was like, you can't do certain things, but then he raised us like that. And like when you said the sleepovers, I agree with you. I wasn't allowed to spend night at anybody's house. So it's either home or your cousins. But like my other friends are like, well, why you can't do that? It's just a culture thing. You can't do it. It's a culture thing. So I feel where you're coming from that.
So I mean, in actuality, we are really all connected in some ways, you know. At least from what T and Lucy's saying, like it, you know, like a lot of us are actually, you know, we're probably second or third generation, you know, immigrants to this country in some way, shape, or form, you know. And they pass that down to our generation, to another generation. So that's, if you think about it, this is why people think the way they do. Yeah, this is exactly why they think the way they do. That's exactly what I think the way they do. We're gonna take a break, but when we come back, I want to ask everybody a question about this. What is it to be American? You know what I mean? What does that mean? That's a good question. I mean, how does that even? How do we even define what American is? You know what I mean? So we're gonna take a quick break. Remember, family, you can call us with your comments and questions at 844-844-1244. Again, it's 844-844-1244. You can also email us at jimmybondspodcast@gmail.com. Again, it's jimmybondspodcast@gmail.com. That's JIMMYBONDS podcast@gmail.com. You'll listen to the Jimmy Bonds Podcast on Illadelphia Radio. We'll be right back.
Hey, this is Michael from Abu Dhabi. Listen to Jimmy Bonds Podcast on Illadelphia Radio.
Welcome back to the Jimmy Bonds Podcast on Illadelphia Radio. We thank you for listening.
Remember, family, you can call us at 844-844-1244. Again, that's 844-844-1244. You can also email us at jimmybondspodcast@gmail.com. Again, it's jimmybondspodcast@gmail.com. That's JIMMYBONDS podcast@gmail.com. And welcome back to Jimmy Bond's podcast on Illadelphia Radio. Remember, family, you can call us with your comments and questions at 844-844-1244. Again, it's 844-844-1244. You can also email us at jimmybondspodcast@gmail.com. Again, it's jimmybondspodcast@gmail.com. It's JIMMYBONDS podcast@gmail.com. And again, family, on this episode, we are covering the topic of first generation. We're lucky to be joined by my girl, Lucy. Lucy, we thank you for definitely sharing your story. You know, Lucy was telling us a little bit about her experience growing up in America and, you know, what it was like, some of the struggles she's had, some of the misconceptions about first generations. But on this segment, I wanted to kick it off and ask everybody a question, like, what does it mean to be American? What does that mean? How do you define that? Because really the only natives to this country are Native Americans. T, what you got? What'd you say, T?
I can sum it up to be American is a hot mess. That's a summary right there.
Yeah, that's a summary of what it is to be American,
the whole
right?
Question. Answer the whole question for
what
you.
A hot mess?
a hot ASS mess.
A hot ass mess.
There you go.
I mean, hey, look,
I'm American. You want to do it?
I can't say you're wrong in a lot of ways. I can't say you're wrong.
Thank you.
Not to you know down our country or nothing like that. But you know,
oh no, we're don't doubt it, but that's what you're gonna get.
Yeah,
let's go see a circus.
Yeah.
Who the ringleader?
You said you want to go see a circus. That's the truth.
Who's the ringleader?
Hey, who is the ringleader? It's true. Ty, what do you feel? What is it to be American?
Well, you know, my views are a little different on this. My family history don't take me back to no slave ships.
We know you
actually
don't.
A lot of my research is done from the Webster's Dictionary of 1828 when I'm defining certain things.
Right.
And like the definition of American in the early 1800s is a Native American originally applied to the Aboriginals or the copper-colored races. So who would be the copper-colored races? Found here by the Europeans, but now applied to the descendants of Europeans born in America. So that's the definition of American based off the 1800 dictionary version.
See, Ty, there you go, Ty. There you go, doing your research. Always.
Everybody can't come from Africa. To try to make it seem as though Africa is the only dark place on earth, and from Africa, everybody just migrated out.
So what is it, Ty? What do you think? What do you think it is?
American is if you're a European and you come over here and now you have first generation children, those children are called Americans.
Right. So how
they're no longer called British, Dutch, French, Spaniards. They are now called Americans.
Yes.
So they remove their original name and take on the American name.
Right. Exactly. So what
they got us to do is they got us to do the same thing, because you can't be in two places at the same time.
Right.
So that's why I always say you can't be African American. You're either one or the other.
There you go. Oh, Lucy, how you feel, Lucy? What is it to be American? What does that mean?
Okay, so don't kill me.
No, you say no, and not on this one. You go ahead.
So it really honestly privileged, and the reason why I say that is because the ways, and I'm going back to how I'm raised, but the way we look at it is like America. We have all types of resources, so anything that we need, we can have. Anything we want to do, we can accomplish. In other countries, you can't do that. So what it feels to me that we are privileged to do anything, become anything we want to be without any type of course, we have our own fights and hurdles and things of that nature, but we can overcome them and do anything. Yeah. And other people in other countries, they can't do that.
Yeah. I mean, that's real. I mean, I can't say you're wrong, but it is privilege. It's a privilege to be born here. It's a privilege to have the things that we have. Although we might look at it like it's not, you know, being Black Americans or African Americans, however you want to define it. A lot of times we don't feel like there are privileges for us. We feel like, you know, the privileges are for the whites. And in a lot of ways there are privileges made for the whites. But, and I don't mean to make everything black and white, T. I don't mean to do that. I mean more in on the minds of if you look a certain hue, then that's definitely, then you're going to have a better view. I don't mean to make that rhyme, but I'm just being honest. I mean, I'm saying more than anything else, like the privilege of being, quote unquote, an American, a lot of times I think we take for granted, which leads me to my next question for the group, for the team, is do you think that first generations are more successful than we are for the ones that are born here? Do they have more success in this country than we do?
I really think it's all about the person. It's all about the person and what you put into it is what you get out of it. Because people can, like, what's that saying? You can lead a horse to water, but you can't make them drink.
Yeah.
Somebody can give you all the stuff and all the tools and the resources, but if you don't utilize them, then that's on you. Like my parents said, sink or swim. We gave you tools to sink or swim. I got that from an old show from back in the day. But still,
it's true.
Sink
You're
or
right.
swim.
You're right. And sinking or swimming a lot of times it's difficult for some people. I mean, I would rather say, sinking a lot of times is what we do in a lot of aspects. It's like, and I don't mean to make this general blanket statement, but across the board, a lot of times you notice that we might sink and first generations might swim. Like that's, and I'm not saying all the time, but and if you look at statistics and stats, a lot of times, they're the ones that go to school, they get the degrees, they start their own businesses, they do all kind of things, and we wonder why. I mean, shoot, I don't know how many Ubers you've been in, and I've had many Africans drive me around and be like, I don't understand the people in this country and why they don't understand like the opportunity that's given to us. What is going on? They don't understand it. And I mean, from their point of view, sometimes we're lazy.
I think our struggles are different.
That's good.
Our struggles are different than theirs.
So if our struggles are different, why do you feel like are we caught in the struggle more than they are?
Well, Lucy said it. She said she feels privilege. We don't feel privilege here.
Right. Okay.
No. When I say privilege, I mean it in the sense of like Americans, like including me being an American, not like me being African who's like first generation. I'm saying in the sense of like other people, they fought, they plead, they did a lot of things to get to this country that's so accessible. And it's like people who live here, they don't want to do anything for themselves. Like, certain people who have all the resources around them and they choose not to do anything. When I have my people or friends that I know or colleagues that I know who are immigrant, who have immigrant parents that struggle to get here. And you mean to tell me you've been here your life and you don't want to do anything that's literally handed for you? So it's like, that's what I mean by us being Americans. We're privileged in that sense that we have all the resources and we can do anything and everything is just accessible to us. And it's on us if we're going to use it or not.
And that's why I asked the question, because I feel like sometimes we don't see the privilege. I think we look at it as a lot of times you can look at things with one hand over your eyes and you can only see the struggle of it, But if you take both hands off, it's a possibility you might see the opportunity that you have. And I mean, even in today, like we get caught up in the struggle. We realize they killing us, they beating us, they not supplying jobs for us. We can't get hired certain places. Like definitely. But if we get caught on to that, who's to say that that first generations don't have the same issue? They're not hiring them exactly. They're getting the same kind of treatment because of the color of their skin. So it makes you think that, okay, so what is it that's holding us back that's not holding them back?
About the school system back home? How's the school system back home compared to the school system over here in America?
I would say it all depends. Like, of course, with the resources, I can only speak for Sierra Leone because it's the economic. Their background is like it's really poor. It's like weak structure. But when it comes to the education part, of course, like their books and materials and things of that nature is not as advanced as ours, of course. But the things that they do have, like they take it seriously. So they're in school longer hours than we are. So it's like it's more of a discipline and strict. It's like it's like how we have, like, let's say September to June. It's like in a sense of it's like all year round.
All year round. Wow, I don't think we could do that as Americans. We'd be like, what? We need a break. What happened to the summer? Summertime.
We have some school.
Yeah, y'all got summer school and winter school. Ain't no breaks. Ain't no Christmas.
No, I'm talking about here in America. We have summer school. You know, you don't pass that class, you go to summer school.
Oh,
yeah.
yeah.
I mean, yeah, that's like that's penalizing. That's not what it really is. Because if you pass the class, you ain't. If you get a C, you ain't going to summer school. Man, I'm not going to summer school. I'm going to have fun.
The whole family up. You can't take a trip.
Yeah, you sure could. We can't go on vacation. You know, America go on vacation.
Summer school is over August 1st. The summer gone.
Yeah, summer done.
You're about to start school in like 30 days, not even like 10 days.
It's over. It's over. But I mean, that's definitely the difference. I mean, of course, the educational system is different. What they're taught is different as well, and how they're taught. Was it? I don't know if your parents ever told you. Do you know what kind of curriculum it was based off of? Was it based off like a British curriculum or a French curriculum or something like that?
No, I mean, I wouldn't know the what in depth, like what the curriculum would look like, but I know like they had like they were focusing more so, like my dad told me, like, because he's back in Africa now, so he's a professor, but he told me their main objective for his school is like English, like, you know, practicing that language, mathematics. That's what their curriculum is, what they're really focusing them on. But I don't know how it was like when he was growing up.
Yeah, see, that's different.
Now you're the because I talked to a lot of people when you said that, like, over there the curriculum is learning English. I'm seeing that in a lot of countries they're making you learn English.
Mm-hmm.
How do you feel about that? Like that, like literally you have your regular and then English is your special language.
Honestly, I really think that it's great. I feel like it's a great thing to have, because at the end of the day, no matter where you go, even when we vacation, right? We go to the Dominican Republic, however, they know that it's going to be English or Americans coming here and they have to learn English. I just feel like it's just a language that is going to carry you anywhere, even if it's broken, if you have to so I feel like it's necessary. Like how Spanish for us, when we were growing up, we had to take Spanish. I feel like that should be for English for everybody.
Spanish turned into Splanglish. Everybody thought that.
But you know, us Americans, we don't want to learn Spanish. No, don't teach us Spanish.
Oh, well, sure enough, starts with Splanglish.
Yeah, we definitely would throw some glacias and some whatever else in our language, but we don't want to learn Spanish. You know, we try to learn Spanish. They look at us they look at us crazy. What are you doing? So let me ask you this question. Now, I know like a lot of first generations have culture shock. You know, they're really shocked when they first come to America and see the way it is and that kind of thing. I mean, of course, like you mentioned before, when you were a child, it was a little bit different than when you were an adult. What do you feel like the culture shock hit you more when you were younger or when you were older?
That's a good question. I would say younger.
Okay.
Because that's when I didn't understand it. Like now that I'm older and I understand, I'm not really shocked. I'm just shocked on a lot of things now about the bridging gap now. But I would say when I was younger, because I didn't understand a lot of things.
Do you feel like you've lost, or your family has lost? I'm really talking about you and your siblings. Do you feel like you've lost some of your traditions that your parents?
Oh, absolutely not. Like, I feel like and it's crazy that you say that, because I feel like when I talk to my cousins and like when we get together and we be like, oh, I can't cook a native dish to save my life. You know what I mean? Like, so that's the only thing I do think about, like, dang, it's like we did special things, like our funerals are different, like our weddings, our baby showers, things of those natures are different. So yeah, we can carry that. But one thing for me is that one day when I have children, most likely they're going to be, you know, at that point, they're going to be second generation. So I just wish I would cook the native food. I could speak the native tongue. So that's the only thing that I really wish I could carry, but I'm not.
Do you think that in a lot of ways America is to blame for that, or do you feel like
no, not at all? No, not at all. I don't think America's to blame of anything of like how, you know, and I'm only speaking from me and my experience, but I don't think America's to blame, because at the end of the day, my parents came here for a reason, right? So it's up to them to, you know, instill those principles and values in me. And it was up to me to say, Mom, I'm going to learn how you're cooking this food in the kitchen. I took my behind outside if I could. Yeah. And not even watch my mom. So that was on me. Like, my friends didn't tell me like, oh, don't cook. Like, I didn't have no influence in that way. It was all on me. And I'm gonna own that.
See, most of the time you would hear people be like, "Yes, it was America's fault. America did it."
Yeah.
That's the reason why I lost my traditions. My kids got too Americanized.
I mean, they did a lot.
Would you say, T?
I agree with her. Like, America did do a lot, but like she said, it was the parents' job to say blah 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 blah. Like, you can't just blame a lot of stuff is, but like for that, no, they didn't say, "Oh no, don't teach your kid." No, that's you. That's your household.
Yeah, sure.
I mean, now that I look at it, I mean, I think it was kind of hard for the parents too, because they had to make a big adjustment and adapt to things as well for the children.
Yeah.
Coming from another country, and they had to adapt and adjust to the ways of being an American, and then had to instill those values and morals onto the child as the child grew.
Yeah.
So I think that's a challenge for the parents as well.
Yeah. It does. And, in a lot of ways, me doing my research on this, I've noticed that sometimes you have parents that, the dad or the mom will come first and then the family would come afterwards. So, or you might have the one parent come and bring the child and then the rest of the family will be over there. So it would be some separation involved in there. So, that could kind of like, diminish some of the traditions and things of that nature. I mean, I just from some of the stuff I've read, I've noticed that, in a lot of ways, they would try to blame it on some of the American aspects, but there's some actual factors that are involved that are often not looked at as to how some of those traditions are lost. And I mean, shoot, you can look at it for us too. I mean, as Black people, I mean, shoot, think about the stuff that we've lost. I can't even tell you traditions that my mom kept that I don't keep no more. You know what I mean? And stuff I could have learned from watching her cook that I didn't learn myself. And I mean, those are regular things. And so, I couldn't blame it on
I don't want to learn.
the American. What would you say, T? You say you don't want to learn? Oh, I thought you said something.
No, I was mumble. I said some stuff you don't want to learn.
Yeah,
no, I said some stuff you don't want to learn.
Exactly. That's what I thought. That's what I thought. Like, no, but I mean, in the grand scheme of things, it seems that as generations go past, there's certain aspects of tradition that are lost. And if in some ways, if we don't, you know what I'm saying, if we don't continue the tradition or continue I don't want to say rituals, but continue the lineage of it, we would, we're losing a lot of things that were passed down. I mean, I can tell you there's certain aspects that I've learned from my mom that I pass down to my kids. There's certain things I learned from my mom that I don't pass down to my kids. So it's like, you can definitely see how that can be done. And you don't have to be first generation to see that. You can just see regular traditions from us as Black Americans. That's, sometimes what it is. Todd, did you have something to say, man? Did you have something to say before I went to break?
I mean, it's slightly off topic, but Lucy, you mentioned something about your funerals are different. Mm-hmm. And I just wanted to know, like, how are your funerals different and what way?
Oh, in the sense of like we have we call it Sarah, and it depends on, let me say this first. It depends if you're Muslim or Christian. If you're Muslim, is dealt a certain way. Then we have I've been to an American funeral where you just go to the church and then you view the body. Yes, we do it that way too. But then we have a tradition where we do a type of prayer and we eat a certain food, and like a kolana is like an actual ritual that we do, and we bless the body before we actually bury it. So it's a lot of little practices we do prior to burying the actual person, just within my culture. So that's what I mean in the sense of it's a little bit different. It's still the same type of concept, but there's a lot of things in between that's a little bit different.
Now, if it's a Muslim funeral, do the men take care of the body like they do here?
Yeah.
The men wash the body and everything like they do over here?
Yeah, so they leave that all to the men to do. Wrap it, clean, the whole process is led to the men.
And the women have to wait by the side of the burial site until the body is let down?
That's another thing for me. And I know we're not talking about that. How I see practices of, Islam in America and how we do it is a little bit different. So it's not in the sense of that extremely strict like that. I've seen that with what you're saying, that standing on to the side. No, it's just respectfully not being in front.
Gotcha.
But not necessarily on a side.
Gotcha. Okay.
I can understand that. That's different. That's what's up. Good question, Ty. Wait, I didn't see.
You're my brother.
I feel you, boy. I feel you. Well, listen, we're going to take a quick break. Remember, family, you call us with your comments, questions at 844-844-1244. Again, that's 844-844-1244. You can also email us at jimmybondspodcast@gmail.com. Again, it's jimmybondspodcast@gmail.com. It's JIMMYBONDS podcast@gmail.com. You'll listen to the Jimmy Bonds Podcast on Illadelphia Radio. We'll be right back.
Hey, this is Michael from Abu Dhabi. Listen to Jimmy Bonds Podcast on Illadelphia Radio.
Welcome back to the Jimmy Bonds Podcast on Illadelphia Radio. We thank you for listening. Remember, family, you can call us at 844-844-1244. Again, it's 844-844-1244. You can also email us at jimmybondspodcast@gmail.com. Again, it's jimmybondspodcast@gmail.com. That's JIMMYBONDS podcast@gmail.com.
And welcome back to Jimmy Bonds Podcast on Illadelphia Radio. Remember, family, you can call us with your comments and questions at 844-844-1244. Again, that's 844-844-1244. You can also email us at jimmybondspodcast@gmail.com. It's jimmybondspodcast@gmail.com. It's JIMMYBONDS podcast@gmail.com. Now, family, again, we are covering the topic of first generation. We are lucky and humble enough to be joined by my girl, Lucy. Lucy, thank you so much for sharing everything that you shared tonight with us. It's very insightful, very information. I don't want to say informational, but very informative. Just helping us, understand more about what the struggles are like from your perspective for a first generation. And I think in some aspects, we have to continue this conversation and bring some more first generations on. But I think I'm going to leave that to Lucy at some point down the line, because I think there's something that we definitely should definitely venture into. But family, I just wanted to say something real quick. Every time you watch the news, and not now, but more before, you hear about DACA, you hear about immigration, you hear about people crossing the border. You hear about things that pertaining to people wanting to come to America to have a better life. You also now recently you hear about the Afghan war ending, a lot of people from Afghanistan coming to America. Mm-hmm. You even notice about the Haitians and seeing them on the border and watching them get beat by Border Patrol. It's horrible. It's horrible. But in reality, we're all not American. We're all immigrants in some way, shape, or form, whether that's 6-7 generations down the line, or in some cases, the first generation. The only people that are really American are the natives. They're the real people that are Americans in this country. And, with that being said, I think that, I always want to ask how do we as U.S. citizens, or the ones that are in, 5th generation, 7th, 9th, 10th generation, how do we help people who are first generation adapt better to coming to a new country? How do you feel like we could do that?
It's kind of hard for us to help them when we haven't been through it.
Yeah.
I haven't, I would have to go over to a country in Africa and take my experiences from over here and go over there and apply it and see how I would work it out.
Yes.
With the different cultures. But for them to come over here and for me to help them out and go through it, I don't think there's anything that I can actually do except give them the respect as a human being, and they just live their lives.
That's
and maybe some resources. That's about it.
Yeah. I mean, we gotta. I feel like
you can't give them any advice. You can't give them.
But in the long run, we mentioned it earlier. In some way, shape, or form, we are actually very similar. Some of our struggles are very similar. Some of the things that we face are very similar. They're not the same. We see we have some of the privileges that they might not be, they might not have at the time. But Lucy, how do you feel? How do you feel like people could, what would have made it easier for you to adapt?
I would say exactly what was said, like the respect factor. That would be the biggest thing. Cause when someone talks with an accent, even just for example's sake, if I'm at the store with my mom, and my mom, I'm not gonna lie, my mama's spicy. So of course, a lot when she talks, sometimes it's if you're speaking to her as my culture, I know she's speaking regular, but someone else speaking who's American or whomever, they would think it's an aggressive tone. So when she's just regularly just speaking and explaining something and she has the accent, I've noticed some people would talk to her crazy. And then I'll have to step in you're not going to talk to my mom like that. And it's I look I look like my mom, so I look African. So you think I have an accent too. So when I start talking, you're like, oh, okay. So I know I'm not going to play this game. No, not with my mama. So
I know
that's
that's right.
the only thing. It's just the respect factor.
I'm glad you both, everyone mentioned that, because I think in a lot of ways, and I mean, I can only really speak from a perspective of a Black American born here. In a lot of ways, we don't respect immigrants and what the struggles they have. I think because in a lot of ways we focus so much on our struggle that we never really put ourselves in their shoes and never really understand that I mean, the privilege word is definitely there, but it's like we're given so much more that I think we take for granted. And when these people come to this country, they're like, well, how are you gonna take that for granted? And I feel like if we just for a second put ourselves in their shoes and realize having to adapt to a new country, imagine us going over to their country, how we would have to adapt, how we would have to, follow their customs and follow their ways, what culture shock we would have to go through. I think that the respect factor is pivotal. It's not even just needed. It is the only thing and the only way that we're going to be able to help everybody coexist. Because that's where the division comes in, the lack of respect for for people from different countries. That's where the division comes in. I think more than anything else, if we find a way to respect the journey, that's what I really think. If we find a way to respect the journey, we'll find a way to respect everybody in general. And on the flip side too, we have some first generation or some immigrants who don't respect some of our struggles. Who they downplay what we've been through because they might see it as a privilege, and our struggles sometimes hold us back. I think it goes both ways. It's something that goes both ways, which leads me to my next question for the team. So how can we help each other? If the respect factor is needed, how can we help each other gain that respect?
Again, I mean, it's just a respect thing because their visions are different than ours. Again, we are here. We've been here. So our fight and struggle has been dealing with the system that's already in place. They're coming from one system into another one. So it's a little different for them. It's only but so much that we can do for each other. We can continue doing what we do to advance ourselves and give them respect to let them do or just see them do what they do. Maybe we can take from them what they're doing to be successful and apply it to us.
Yeah.
That's a perfect way to say it and plus the conversation piece, because even speaking to you guys, just even hearing about like your own struggles, even though I am an American, I grew up here, but just hearing from you guys is actually even like making me think of certain things that I never looked at either. But it's like both sides need that conversation, because I'm gonna be completely honest, there's some Africans who don't want to have that conversation with Americans because of the privilege thinking like, what do you have to complain for? You're born here. So that's their mentality. Like they're like, I was undocumented for X amount of years and I fought for my citizenship. Like, you know what I mean? So it's just the conversation that needs to happen from both ends to understand it a little better. And, like that's why I wanted to come on here, because having these type of conversations is healthy because you see people's different perspective on things that you don't have a clue about. So I think this starts here.
I think that's the key. I think always opening the dialogue and, like you said, starting the conversation is what's going to help people just start understanding each other better. I think the more we understand about our struggles, the more we respect each other as individuals and humans. And I only have African Americans and Black Americans on here right now. I'm not saying that this is just for people of our hue. I mean, this is really just for everybody. I wouldn't want to limit this conversation just to us, because in other cultures, in the Hispanic culture and the Indian culture, or the Asian culture, the Chinese culture, there's so many different ways that their experiences are different. And that's why I would want to include them on that as well, because it's not just about being Black or anything. We all have struggles in this country. We all have struggles every day. We all have things that we have to work through. And, I think if we respect each other's struggles, respect each other's journey, it would get us a lot further. Definitely would get us a lot further. So I don't want to.
I have one last question, though.
Yeah, go ahead, Ty. Go ahead, bro.
What do you define yourself as when it comes to race? Are you African, American, Black? What do you define yourself?
Oh man, you're about to put me on the spot. Honestly,
what box do you check?
if of course they don't have the box, but I have put other and put African.
Okay.
Okay.
Yep, I put other too, girl.
All right.
What do you put, T?
I put other sometimes.
You put other sometimes?
Yeah.
Why do you put other sometimes?
One, why do we have to find ourselves? Two, because I'm just, just mix up with everything. So just put other, call it day. But to America, I'm black. So sometimes I put black, sometimes I put other. It just all depends. On if I remember it. It all depends on what I check off. Sometimes I do it by accident, but it just doesn't really matter.
No, that's the end of the day. That's the biggest thing. Doesn't really matter.
Doesn't really matter.
Doesn't really matter.
And now
what you
they
define
have
yourself as?
now they have like for the genders and all that stuff. Doesn't really matter. It's a job. What does my gender and my race have to do with this job and what I'm bringing to the table?
That's often T. That's one of the biggest things. That's one of the biggest things. Like you said, it doesn't really matter.
But I really want to know who started that. Like, why do we put that? Ty, that's your assignment.
That's affirmative action.
I can give it to you in 2 minutes right now.
Come on, Ty. Tell us, Ty. Tell us, Ty.
So whenever you sign a document, you see the X right there. That's called X marks. X marks the spots was how our ancestors originally would sign off on documents.
Oh.
So they had to start classifying us in order to take land. So they started classifying us as certain groups.
Okay.
And we would sign off by just putting an X on there. So that's why when you ever see a document with an X on it, you got to sign right there. That's called X marks, because that's how we used to sign documents with Europeans.
Now, why are we still signing documents like that, though? I don't understand. Like, how long ago did all this supposedly end? Supposedly, Ty? Supposedly.
Girl, it ain't ended.
Exactly.
No, it didn't end. It's just,
we're just blinded from it.
But yeah, they're called X marks.
Say it again. Blinded.
Yeah. We're just blinded from it. We'd rather not see it. That's really what it is. We'd rather not see that this is really happening. That's pretty much what it is. And Lucy, before we go, I had one question. Yeah. And this is something for everybody. I always think about how Lucy, your parents was like, they came to America, they want to have a better life. A lot of parents are the same way. A lot of cultures are the same way. And, most of the ways to get to a better life in America is to go to school. In 2021, the cost of school is so much. And there are different avenues for people to, to be successful or to take care of their families or whatever it may be. Do you feel like that is an antiquated way of survival in America?
In 2021 now, no. Back then, like I'm saying, like 2000, like back in that era, yeah. Because I feel like it's this day and age, you don't really have to have an education to have a six-figure job.
Yeah.
Like back then in their mentality is like you were respected. Like, oh, my daughter went to school. My daughter's a doctor. My daughter, that's like the bragging rights. Like I came and sacrificed all this and look at my daughter. She's an engineer. She's a doctor. So that was bragging rights. But now it's like, as long as you're getting money, I don't care what you are. Like my parents, in a sense, is not like sweating because of course, look at me, Jay, I'm not in nothing in the health field.
I know.
But I'm able to provide and send home for my family as long as that they're financially okay. They're okay.
Yeah. And so, and I asked that question because, like I said, like even with us as Americans, get your graduate from high school and go to college, get your degree, you're going to do better. But me and T always talk about how, and Ty too always talk about how that's not the way it is anymore.
No,
it's not like that. It's not.
If I could do it all over, I wouldn't have I would have picked another route.
And there you have it. Ty, you hear that?
Yep. Lucy from West Philly, the hustler.
See, that's it. Philly made her hustle. That's what it is. That's what it is, man. T, what you think? What you think, T? Do you think it's antiquated? You recently graduated. I'm gonna say not recent, but I'm gonna say like 3 or 4 years ago, right?
Sure. Yeah, actually, yeah. As long as you have some kind of whatever to get by, I guess. Like there's trade schools, there's there's different aspects now. So where when she was saying she said like there's different aspects. You could choose trade school, go right into a business. There's so many things.
For me, it's school nowadays.
I personally want to go to school.
Right. You personally want to go to school. We talked about this before. Other podcasts. I always feel like they come, a lot of times first generation come here, they want the kids to go to school because school will lead them to a better job, will lead them to a better a better life. But the American market is so competitive. The school costs so much. How else can they succeed, and come into this country for a better life? If the avenue of school is not exactly the most beneficial. And nowadays, the avenue of school, and I'm not trying to knock school or knock university or getting education, nothing like that, but that avenue a lot of times is not the most beneficial. And so, I just thought that I wanted to ask Lucy that because, like I said, that's a tradition a lot of times is they come, first generation parents, immigrants, they come here, they want just a better life for their kids. And the burden is, go to school, become a doctor, become a lawyer, become whatever. Bragging rights don't really pay the bills. When you got that school debt, I don't need no bragging rights. I'm being straight up honest. School bragging rights don't pay them bills back. So it's just something that I always want to ask my first generations, like how do you feel about it? In this day and age in 2021. But yeah, the family, this has been a great show. I've really enjoyed it, Lucy. Of course, I thank you for coming on and sharing your story with us and your perspective with us. And
thank you guys for having me. It was a pleasure.
Definitely, Lucy. Definitely. Ty, you want to say something before we go?
I enjoyed the interview. I mean, hopefully we can do it again.
Yeah, hopefully we can. T, how you feel?
Yeah. Same thing. I agree.
Yeah, great interview.
I enjoyed it. Hopefully we can do it. It was a really good interview.
Yeah, I thought it was too. But I'm gonna end on this note. Being born in the U.S. is quote unquote a privilege. Not all of us had to, exactly. Not all of us had to make the journey. Not all of us were forced to adapt to unforeseen circumstances. In a lot of ways, I think the biggest part that we all have to understand is, as quote unquote Americans living in this land, is that the respect for each other will take us a lot further and help us coexist a lot better. So I ask that everybody out there listening, respect your first generation, respect your immigrants. I ask our immigrants to do the same, respect us, respect our struggles, respect our journeys. Better understand each other will get us a lot further. So on that note, family, I want to thank you for joining Jimmy Bond's podcast on Illadelphia Radio. Remember, family, please wear your mask, wash your hands, practice social distancing. If you're vaccinated or you're not vaccinated, I ain't gonna hold it against you. Just make sure you take care of yourself and make sure you tell your friends and your family and your loved ones that you love them, because you never know when you might get another second chance. That's gonna wrap the show, family. I'm Jimmy Bonds, and I'm out. Peace.
Fam, that's going to wrap the show. We want to thank you for listening to Jimmy Bond's podcast on Illadelphia Radio. We ask you leave your comments and questions at 844-844-1244. Again, that's 844-844-1244. You can also email us at jimmybondspodcast@gmail.com. Again, that's jimmybondspodcast@gmail.com. That's JIMMYBONDS podcast@gmail.com. Now remember, family, we are still in the COVID-19 pandemic, so please remember to wash your hands, wear a mask, and practice social distancing. Also, remember to take nothing for granted and value every opportunity you have with your friends, your family, and your loved ones. For in these times, every moment is sacred. So until the next episode, you can find me on Go Ho Road, screaming, stay up, don't sleep in your dreams. I'm Jimmy Bonds, and I'm out. Fight on, come on.